Hi guys, and welcome to my YouTube channel Read No Grow. My name's Hayden, and this YouTube channel is all about giving you the main insights, key takeaways and sort of a summary on self-development and non-fiction books. And this week's book is The Go-Giver by Burg and John David Mann. And it's essentially a small book on a powerful business idea. Please stay tuned to the end, because if you do, you can get a copy of the book for free. The two main characters in the book are Joe, who's an aspiring businessman who's trying to advance his career in the business setting but is really struggling, and Pinder, who becomes Joe's mentor for the week. And Joe's sort of approach to business is more dog eat dog, whereas Pinder feels the more you give, the more you have. And this is quite alien for Joe to sort of process, but he's willing to chat with Pinder and learn from him because Pinder is very successful. Pinder puts his success down to those 5 stratospheric laws of success. These are the law of value, the law of compensation, the law of influence, the law of authenticity, and the law of receptivity. Pinder only has one request, and that is that Joe implements the law before the next day. So the first law is the law of value, and Pinder takes Joe to an Italian restaurant where he meets the owner called Ernesto. And they're just talking about how Ernesto kind of developed his business. And basically Ernesto started with a hot dog stand, like in a truck sort of thing. And he managed to develop his business, so he's now got a lot of real estate in restaurants. And he's just telling Joe about how this happened, and he describes the law of value. And he started off by just memorizing the kids' birthdays who were coming to the hot dog stands, knowing their names, knowing their favorite colors, just giving value and making sure that those people who were coming to his stand felt appreciated. And that is one of the main things that Ernesto feels that was the key point to his success. Because those kids felt appreciated, that the man at the hot dog stand remembered all these things, the birthdays, then the kids kept wanting to go, which meant that the mum and dads and the family members came to the hot dog stands too. And then in turn it spiraled, and that businessmen and women were coming to the hot dog stand for like a power lunch, and just realizing that this hot dog stand was actually becoming a thriving business, and which led to business people investing in his stand and then growing up his company. So it all started with just adding value. And Ernesto describes how some businesses, like restaurants, just give the little they can, and then some better restaurants give a little bit more, and then the best restaurants give above and beyond. And those are the restaurants that, people come back to. And it doesn't mean that they're spending a fortune, but it can just be little things like, say you go to a restaurant and you get a chocolate with your coffee, but the other restaurant that you go to doesn't. Or the waiter's really friendly, the staff are really lovely, and they just go above and beyond. And it's those places that tend to have the most success, because you feel valued and appreciated when you go there. This kind of appreciation can run down in so many things, I think. Like if you think about places that you've worked in the past, and your boss remembers your birthday, and it can just be a little thing, but that just makes you feel appreciated, and you probably work harder because you just feel acknowledged and seen. And I think that sort of thing can trickle in any business setting, feeling appreciated. It can make a real impact to the staff and the people who are coming and experiencing that business. Ernesto goes on to say another phrase which can be really relatable in the business world. He says that all things being equal, people tend to do business or refer business to those who they know, like and trust. And that is such a common phrase in business now, or social media, if you're trying to grow your platform and things like that. Your audience need to know, like and trust you. So if you give value, then people are more likely to do business with you. So that takes us to our first law, which is your true worth is determined by how much you give in value than you take in payment. So Joe feels like this is a recipe for bankruptcy, but Ernesto points out that if whatever you're doing adds value and makes money, then profitable things will happen. So I was just trying to think about this, and it's so true, because the places that I go back to again and again would be the places that add a bit more value. It would be that independent shop that they're really kind and they just go that extra mile for you, whether it be they wrap things up in like nice tissue paper, or they recommend X, Y, and Z to you. And even though you maybe might not buy something then, you'd maybe refer someone to someone else. You know, if it's someone's birthday coming up, you'd maybe say, oh, go to this place because they really look after you there. So as I said, Pinder had one rule and Joe had to implement the law before the next day. So Joe goes back to his office after lunch and he actually gives a competitor a number of a client with no strings attached, when usually he would be like, you know, you owe me a favor for this, but he didn't. He just gave a number away because he knew that this client would benefit being with this competitor. And it doesn't really sit well with Joe because he's not really used to doing this, but he has to implement this law, the law of value. So Joe gives this number away essentially for free, and he's still trying to think about what Ernesto said, and that was, you give, give, give. Why? Because you want to, not because it's a strategy, but because it's a way of life. The next law is the law of compensation, and Joe meets a teacher who used to be a classroom teacher and now is a really successful owner and CEO of a company based on educational software for children. So she's gone from teaching a small class of 25 children to now reaching millions. So this takes us on to the second law, which is determined by how many people you serve and by how well you serve them. So this really resonated with me because, like, reading all these self-development books, I've just felt really inspired and also just felt like a little bit disappointed that I didn't know all this stuff before. Like, I really wish I'd known some of these tools to help me, like when I was younger, you know, dealing with breakups, dealing with like just heartache, stress, all those things. And I feel like I could have been a really better person or dealt with a lot of more situations better if I'd known these things. And that's why I'm wanting to try and share these things as well. So if I can share this with more and more people, then I just feel like that would just be such an amazing thing to do. Instead of just me reading it and having it for myself, if I shared it, then maybe I could help someone else. The CEO that Joe and Pinder talked to says that the more people you serve, the more successful you'll be. It's just that simple. And she also refers to a really great quote by the Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. that everybody can be great because everybody can serve. And if you just think about, like, there's this person who I follow and her name's Curl Maven and she does like curly hair. She's like a curly hair guru. And she started off by just doing blog posts, by doing one-on-one curl clinics, by having like Instagram stories. And now her channel's got so big and her audience has got so big that she's actually been able to open a store in Dublin, specialised in curly hair and actually like showing other people, other hairdressers, how to cut curly hair and style it. And if you're someone who's got curly hair, it's really hard to find someone who does that. But she's sharing that knowledge, and because of that, she's just going to get more and more successful. But what I love is that she didn't like contain all that information and try to be selfish and keep it to herself. She actually wants people to experience this and do better and learn from it. And I just love that. And I think those kind of people are the people who do really well in life. So the next law is the law of influence, and Joe meets with Sam, who used to be a really successful insurance salesperson, but his negotiating powers were so strong that he actually ended up becoming a worldwide negotiator for charities. And Sam talks about how that it wasn't through networking and you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours that it became successful. It was because he built a reputation and had almost like these personal walking ambassadors, people who referred to him, trusted him and liked him and would talk about him in other business settings, and that's how he kind of grew his success. So even if he wouldn't do business with people directly, he would always get referrals because his negotiating skills were so good. So Sam describes this as, you know, not keeping score in business, not like, well, you owe me a favor sort of thing, but having like a relationship with people who are genuinely inspired and want you to succeed. And this is why this law is so aptly named the law of influence. When I think about influence who I like resonate with and who I think are really authentic, then it's those ones who I really want to succeed. And those are the people who like I would buy something from. And even if this isn't like, you know, Stacey Solomon, who I absolutely love, but it could just be like a small business who you just feel like you really want them to do well. You know, you see them trying really hard, they seem authentic, and they maybe engage with you, they interact with you, And it's those people who you want to succeed. So you'd maybe mention them to someone else if they're looking for a present or something like that. Or maybe, you know, you don't buy something from them there and then, but you've always got them in the back of your mind. So this brings us to the third law, which is your influence is determined by how abundantly you place other people's needs first. Following this conversation with Sam, Joe's like reflecting on the people who he's met so far, and he realizes that they all have this kind of magnetic quality about them, but he can't quite place what it is. Pinder says it's because they give, and givers attract, which in turn gives them this attractive magnetic personality. And I think you can see this in some people, like say someone is really kind, they give off that vibe, and that giving is attractive and it makes you more sort of drawn to that person. The fourth law is the law of authenticity, where Joe meets Deborah Davenport, who's actually speaking in a full auditorium, and the crowd is moved by the way she's describing her success. But it starts off that she was actually left on her birthday by her husband, and she was left with her kids, and she'd only ever been a full-time mum. So she started to go into real estate and became a realtor. But she was really struggling, and she like learned all the closing techniques but never sold a single house until her last day, where instead of like going through all the techniques, all the spiels, she actually was just herself. And that was the first time she landed a deal. And it just kind of shows you that kind of being yourself can be, as cheesy as it sounds, is your superpower. And that's what the fourth law is. The most valuable gift you have is to be yourself. And that's what this lady was saying. You know, if you're trying to put on an act, learn a behavior, do something that someone else has taught you, and you're not really being yourself, then you're not going to reach people as easily. So this could be like likened to influencers. You know, some people kind of just give off a not a very authentic vibe, and they're maybe trying to copy someone else. So if I'm honest, this was the law that I struggled with the most, and Pinder sort of likens this to inhaling and exhaling. If you give, you have to be open to receive in turn. And in like a business setting, I just kind of think like, how can you be open to sort of being receptive and receiving? And there is like an example in the book, you know, instead of like shutting away from a compliment, say, you take a compliment, and just kind of like expanding that to a business setting, I just found a little bit difficult. And I kind of took it a bit like being open to good things happening to you, and just allowing yourself to maybe kind of have those big dreams and be curious and kind of accept the good things that do happen to you when you give. And maybe like a small example of this would be, you know, accepting a compliment, you know, instead of being like, oh, no, being like, oh, thank you, you know? But that's just like one example. And even in the book, it says there's like a discussion bit that a lot of people struggle with the law of receptivity. And those are the 5 laws of stratospheric success. And I'd love to know your thoughts if you guys have read the book and if you've implemented those, and if you actually did become more successful. Or if you pass these on and someone else you know has become more successful because of it. And basically the book ends with Joe having learned all these laws, he implements them, and he does become more successful. And there's like a ripple effect that becomes of that he then hires people and he teaches them the laws to them as well, and then they in turn become more successful. And like I said earlier, this book is 122 pages long. It's so short, it's such a small little book there. So you could easily finish this in a day. And I think it would be like a really nice book to have, or like, you know, if you were in a business, to maybe get your colleagues to kind of read it. It's just, I think if everyone kind of had an idea of these laws, then a workplace would be a really nice environment, you know, just kind of giving, adding value. I just think that that's like a really nice way to sort of live. And it doesn't even have to be like a business setting, you know, you can give more just by like giving more time to people, giving more attention to people, you know, maybe instead of having a conversation, you're not on your phone, you're actually giving them your attention, giving more care to people. So it can actually be like a way of life, like it said like at the start of the book, which I think is a really nice way to kind of live. And it also kind of made me feel like quite wholesome about business, you know. I think I had more of a Joe's approach, you know, dog eat dog, people are more out to get each other. Whereas if you have this approach, like it kind of just makes you feel a bit more kind of buoyant about business or something. So yeah, I just really enjoyed the book. It's very small fable and easily read. So if you've read it or you think you're going to read it, Just let me know any comments, any points you had. I'd love to know, and I'll try and get back to you guys. Yeah, thank you so much for listening to my first video. I can't wait to make more. I've also got an Instagram page where I'm sharing sort of like insights from the books as well, so you can follow me there. Please like, comment, subscribe, do all the things just to help this channel grow. It means so much to me. So thanks again, and take care. Bye.